Chaim l'chaim. So, every single word and every single letter of the Torah is very, very important and extremely accurate. Right? We know that if even one letter is missing, or if you use the wrong, if you put the wrong letter, the whole Torah becomes puzzle. However, in this week's Parsha, we have a letter which seems a bit strange and seems a bit out of place. So, the Torah speaks about a very interesting mitzvah. It's the mitzvah of Shiluach Hakan, right? Sending away the mother birds. And there are many. It's a mitzvah which is a bit difficult to understand. There are many different reasons for it. We're told that it's there are many different reasons that are brought down for this mitzvah. But when the Torah introduces this mitzvah, it starts off as follows, right? Ki yikarei kan sipar lefanecha. When you encounter a bird nest. And the word yikarei, encounter, is a word I don't think we find very often in the Torah. And the commentary is Rashi, starting with Rashi, explain that it's talking about a nest that you just encounter, not a nest that you expect it to be there. It's not a nest that belongs to you. It has to be something that you just encounter and was unexpected. And it comes from the word mikra, which means something that just happens. An occurrence, something that occurred, something that happens. However, the word mikra in Hebrew is spelled with the shirish kuf reish hey. But if you look over here in the pasuk, it's not spelled yikarei yud kuf reish hey. Instead, it's spelled yud kuf reish aleph, which is a completely different word. Right? The word yikarei with an aleph is has the root of the shirish of kara or kra, which means to call, which seems to be the exact opposite. It seems like it's a nest that you're calling on, that you're expecting, right?
Isn't there a word it means what? With karaya?
Kara with an ayin. Yeah. That's a different shirish. But it seems that the word it's not a mistake or anything. That's the way the Torah spells it here. But this is not the normal spelling of the word mikra.
But why
and there has to be a reason why the Torah chooses to spell it like this, and that's what we're going to discuss tonight. So, in the city of Vilna, Menashe is a big businessman. He's a big lumber merchant, and he comes to shul in the morning, and he's davening in shul. And he's very, very nervous. See, today he has an important meeting. He's supposed to meet with one of the local dukes who owns the nearby cities and the nearby forests, and he's planning to purchase wood from his forest. And he's very nervous because this particular duke is not a very pleasant person to do business with. And the last few times, every time he came to him, he raised the prices. The year before, he had almost doubled his prices for no reason. I think he blamed it on COVID, which would happen like a few hundred years later. Supply chain issues. I don't know. He came up with reasons. The inflation, other issues. Yeah, he had excuses, and not only besides for the raising of the prices. He always came up with different problems. He added on some extra fees. Different services he wanted to throw in, and he had to agree to. It was a little bit difficult. This wasn't a pleasant meeting. And every year he had to meet with his duke. He had no choice. This was a big part of his parnasa. But he wasn't very excited, and the whole davening, he's asking Hashem to help him out, to make this go smoother, to make it go easier. He finishes davening, and he's wrapping up his tefillin, and as he's wrapping up his tefillin, Moshe the beggar comes over, and he asks him if he can give him some tzedakah. And so he reaches into his pocket, and Moshe says, "Is everything okay? You don't look well." And he says, "Yeah, I'm very nervous to have this meeting." And he says, maybe Moshe, maybe you can give me a blessing. He said to the beggar, maybe you could bless me. I need a lot of help today. And he says, "What type of blessing do you need? I'll bless you, success in your business." He says, "No, today I I need a miracle. I'm dreading this meeting for weeks already. I need a miracle. So Moshe smiles. He takes the tzedakah that he gave him, and he says, Hashem should bless you. You should have miraculous success today. Okay, fine. He thanks him for the blessing. Moshe thanks him for the donation. And Menashe heads out for his meeting with the Duke. And he comes into the meeting, and to his surprise, the Duke greets him with a big smile, which is a bit unusual. Usually the Duke had a frown on his face, always angry. And he says, "Oh, my good friend Menashe, it's so nice to see you. We've been doing business for so long. It's wonderful to see you again. I'm sure I know you came to buy the wood from my forest, and it's so wonderful. So many years we've been doing business together." And they're talking, and the Duke is treating him very nicely, which is very unusual. And then the Duke says, we've been doing business for a while already. I figured it's time I should give you a discount. You're such a good customer, right? I'm going to give you, 30% off this year. Can't believe it. Not only isn't he raising the prices, he's lowering the prices. Wow. And he says, I'm sure you need help chopping down all the trees, so I have some of my workers are available next week. If you want, they can help you out. I'm not thinking, he's going to charge me through the roof for this. It's like, how much are they going to cost me? He says, well, it's free. They're not, they're available anyways. They can help you out. I can't believe his ears. He thanks the Duke. They conclude all the business transaction, and he walks out, and he's like, wow, that was amazing. So, exact opposite of how he treated me on a regular basis. Now he's suddenly treating me so nicely. He's offering me discounts. I didn't even ask for a discount. I was hoping he wouldn't raise the prices, right? And he's walking home, and he's thinking, wow, it's a miracle, he says. And as he thinks a miracle, suddenly he remembers his meeting with Moshe the beggar that morning. It's like, could it be? Nah. There's no connection. Okay, he goes home. A few weeks pass by. And a few weeks later, he has to meet with a different nobleman, also to buy wood from him. And this guy also was a big problem, always caused him tzaras. And he's in shul that morning, davening to Hashem to give him success in his business. And again, he notices Moshe the beggar, and he thinks to himself, maybe I should get a blessing again. Last time I had, could be there's a connection. So this time he goes over to Moshe, and he says, Moshe, you remember you gave me a blessing a few weeks ago. I need another blessing. He says, well, what blessing do you need? I need another miracle. Okay, he gives Moshe a big donation, and Moshe gives him a bracha. Hashem should give him miraculous success. He goes to meet with this other nobleman, and again, he's surprised. He can't believe his ears. This guy is treating him so well. He offers him a discount. He makes everything goes so smoothly. And this is amazing. And he decides from now on, whenever he does business, he's always going to make sure to go to Moshe the beggar and get a bracha. Right? So, from then on, every business deal he did, he got a bracha, and everything went, his business started shooting up. Quickly doubled all of his income, tripled, quadrupled. Within a year, he was the richest man in Vilna. At the end of the year comes Purim time, and the custom in Vilna was that the Gvir, the richest man in town, would make a big party on Purim and invite everybody in town to come over. So that's what he did. Now Menashe is the Gvir, the richest man in Vilna. So he makes a big party, he invites the whole town, and at the party they bring out a lot of wine, and there's a mitzvah to drink a lot of wine, and he's drinking and drinking and drinking. And as he's trying to stand up, he's having a hard time standing, well, somebody calls out and he says, Menashe, you got to tell us your secret. You've always been a good merchant, you've always been a good lumber merchant, you made a good deal of money, but over the last year, it's crazy. Blew up. What happened? And he's a little reluctant, but he drank a lot, so he says, I'll tell you my secret. It's Moshe the beggar. I get a bracha from him every time I go to a business meeting. I get a bracha from Moshe, and I'm telling you, it's miraculous. The next morning, there's a big line of people in front of Moshe. Everybody has donations. They all want to get a bracha from Moshe the beggar, right? And Moshe is giving everybody blessings, and it's amazing. Everybody's having so much success. Mamash, a big tzad. Nobody must be one of the hidden tzaddikim, right? And word spreads throughout Vilna. It spreads to the surrounding cities. And the news arrives in Mezhebush. And the Baal Shem Tov hears about this. And he sends two of his Hasidim. He says, you got to get to the bottom of this. And he sends two of his Hasidim to ask Moshe, tell Moshe he wants to meet with him. Okay, Moshe the beggar gets an invitation like this from the Baal Shem Tov, of course. He's so happy. And he travels to Mezibush. And the Baal Shem Tov tells him, what's your secret? Right? I'm familiar with the 36 hidden tzaddikim, and you're not one of them. So, what's your deal? And he says, I don't know, I'm not sure. Everybody wants a blessing from me. I don't know why. And they say my blessings work. I have no idea. I'm not a big tzaddik. I don't learn Torah. I don't know nothing. I don't know what this is about. And the Baal Shem Tov tells him, I want to hear a little bit, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your life. Tell me a little bit about your history. How did you're a beggar. How did you end up this way? And he says, I'll tell you the story. I used to be Moshe the tailor, not Moshe the beggar. I was a tailor. I used to go around sewing garments for people. And, I had parnasa. I made a decent livelihood, but, I was never had any extra money. And I had a close friend, Reuven. He was another tailor. And one day we were talking and we were discussing the difficulties of our profession. Right? We were simple tailors. We weren't hired by the nobility to sew the fancy garments. We sewed clothing for the peasants, for the farmers. And in the city of Vilna there were a lot of tailors and there wasn't a lot of business to go around. So my friend Reuven says to me, maybe we should begin traveling around all the villages around Vilna, right? Aren't any tailors in many of those villages. I'm sure we could make some money. And I wasn't sure. It could be a long trip. It could be leaving my family for a long time. But my friend convinced me that it would be worth it. And of course, we discussed it with our wives, and they agreed. We told them we'd be away for a while. We borrowed some money so our family would be able to survive while we're gone. And we set out on a long trip. We began traveling all over. We went to all these different villages where there were no tailors, and Baruch Hashem, we had a lot of success, and we traveled around for 2 years. For 2 years, we traveled around, and by the end of the 2 years, we had put together, both of us, me and my friend Reuven, had put together 500 rubles. And we felt this was a substantial amount of money, and we decided it's time to go home, right? We haven't seen our families in 2 years. It's time to go home. So we begin traveling home, and on the way we stop off at a little village, and this village happens to have a Jew. And we stopped off at his house. He invited us in. He gave us a place to stay. He was very well off. He worked for the local baron. And as we're talking to him, when he's talking to us, we noticed that something's bothering him. He looked like something was bothering him. And we asked him, is everything okay? He said, yeah, he's having this problem with the baron. What's the problem? He says, well, the baron is making, in another month, he's making a wedding for his daughter. And he needs, for the whole family, he needs nice outfits for the wedding. And so he called his Jewish manager, and he asked him to find him a good tailor to prepare garments for the wedding. So, of course, the Jew continues, I went out, I found the best tailors in the area, and I brought them to the baron, and the baron wanted to see their work, and he took one look at it, and he said, nah, not good. And I tried one tailor, another tailor, I got the best tailors, I brought them in from far and wide, and the baron isn't happy. He doesn't like any of the tailors. And he's starting to get upset at me, right? There's only 1 month left for the wedding, and the work needs to start. So we turned to him, Moshe and Reuven turned to him, and they say, we're tailors. Maybe we can do it. And he started laughing. He said, what? You sew garments for the peasants, for the farmers. You've never had any experience with sewing wedding garments for the nobility. And he said, listen, the baron didn't like any of your tailors, so maybe you'll like us, it doesn't hurt to try. So he brought them to the baron, and the baron took one look at their work, and he says, amazing! I've never seen such beautiful garments! Right? And they got a job, and he promised them to pay them 100 rubles for just a couple of weeks of work. This was amazing. This usually would take them, it would take them months. It would take them, half a year to earn this amount of money, and now they can just earn it. They can earn it in just a couple of weeks. So they did all the work, and the Baron was very happy. He was very excited with the garments that they had sewn, and they came. They brought all the garments to the Baron, and they came to collect their money. And as they're taking their money and they're walking out of the Baron's house, they hear crying. They hear crying and screaming. And they turn to the Baron and he says, "Everything okay?" And he says, "Don't worry about it. It's Yassel the Jew. He was thrown into the dungeon. He didn't pay his rent." "Really? What happened?" "Well, he owes me 300 rubles, and it's been years. His debt has been getting bigger and bigger. Finally, after 10 years, I couldn't take it anymore, and I took him and his family and I threw them into the dungeon." And Moshe said, I turned to my friend Reuven and said, "We got to help him. We got to help them. We have 600 rubles with us, right? We could take half the money and we could free them." And my friend Reuven said to me, "Are you crazy? We worked for 2 years for this money. You want to take half the money and throw it away?" I said, "Stop throwing it away. It's a mitzvah." And he says, "Okay, listen, if they want to ask, if someone were to ask me to give a ruble, maybe 5 rubles, I can give 5 rubles. It's a big mitzvah. But 300 rubles? We're tailors. We're not wealthy businessmen. This is not for us." And I said, "But we're here. We just heard the cries. How could we walk away?" And Reuven says, "I don't know anything about you. If you want, I can give you 1 ruble. That's it. I'm not having any part of this." So I said, "Okay. Then I'll do it myself. We have 600 rubles together. That means 300 rubles for me, 300 rubles for you. I want to dissolve our partnership right here, right now, and I want to take my half of the money." I took my half of the money. I went to the Baron. I paid him the 300 rubles, and the family was released from prison. They were so thankful. They thanked me, but I quickly left. And we went back home, and Reuven came back home, a wealthy man. He was able to open a big tailor shop, and he was very successful in his business. He was able to invest, and I came home with not a penny to my name and a lot of debts. Right, I borrowed a lot of money before my trip, and I wasn't able to cover the debts. So all of my supplies that I used for my job was taken away from me. I had to sell everything, and I became a beggar. And when the Baal Shem Tov heard this, he said, "Of course, now I understand what's going on. Now I understand why your blessings are so holy and why they're accepted in heaven." He said, "I want you to know that your mitzvah, you can't even imagine the value of your mitzvah in heaven. And I want you to stop being a beggar. I want you to come to me, and I want you to learn Torah with me." And the Baal Shem Tov supported Moshe and his family, and Moshe became one of the students for the Baal Shem Tov, and he became one of his greatest students.
And what was his name?
His name was Moshe. So there are times when, there are times when we hear somebody crying, when we hear somebody in trouble, and we have a choice to make. We could say it's not my problem, right? I can give, I'll give a few dollars, right? Or we could say, if I heard somebody crying, if I heard somebody calling out, it's my job. It's my job to help. I'm here. It's for me. It's a message for me. I have to step up to the plate. And the truth is, this is not only true when you hear some person calling out, but Baal Shem Tov explained, he taught that everything a person sees, every situation a person finds himself in, there's a lesson, there's a message for him, right? A group of students of the Baal Shem Tov were once traveling in the winter, January, and it was a cold winter night, and they were traveling on the road, and they noticed a commotion on the side of the road in the river, the frozen river. And they looked out, and they saw a whole ceremony. This is there's a Russian holiday known as Epiphany. It's a holiday that's celebrated sometime in the beginning of January, where they go out into the frozen river, and they carve out in the river a big cross. And they they're toivel themselves. They immerse themselves in the water. Last year, unfortunately, there was a viral video of somebody who drowned while doing it. It went around, very sad story. But this is a holiday that's been going on for hundreds of years. And the Baal Shem Tov students see this strange ceremony. They're carving a cross in the ice. And they're very disturbed by this. Right? It's a little bit strange, and they didn't, they know from the Baal Shem Tov that everything they see they have to learn a lesson from. Right? And they go back to their Rebbe and they said, Rebbe, we saw the strange sights and we don't know what lesson we could learn from it. And the Baal Shem Tov says to them, the lesson is very simple. Water, in general, represents purity, represents holiness. Right? Water represents holiness. A person who's impure can go into the water and purify himself. But that's only if the water is warm. Once the water turns cold, it becomes solid. Not only does the ice not purify anybody, but the ice can be used to carve an idol into the ice. And this teaches us that when it comes to our service of Hashem, someone who serves Hashem with warmth and enthusiasm and excitement, right? That's holy, that's pure. But if your service of Hashem is dead, it's cold and dead, then unfortunately turn into impurity, the opposite of holiness. And this is something that the Baal Shem Tov taught his students. There are many, many stories about this. Just one of the stories, many, many different versions of the following story. It's actually in some places split up into two stories. There are different parts of the story. But there's a story told about Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnoa, one of the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, one of the greatest students of the Baal Shem Tov. So when he first came to the Baal Shem Tov, this was before he was a chassid, and when he first came to the Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem Tov would taught him this, that everything that happens, everything a person sees or hears, is a message from Hashem. And as they were talking, there was a knock on the window, and Goy calls in, and he calls to the Baal Shem Tov. He says, Yisraelik, is there anything I can fix? He was a local handyman, and he would go around fixing things. He said, any of the benches in the shul are broken, any tables, something I can fix. And the Baal Shem Tov says, no, everything's okay. It's fine. Right? You don't need anything fixed. And he says, Yisraelik, you didn't look hard enough. If you look hard enough, I'm sure you'll find something that needs to be fixed. So the Baal Shem Tov turns to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, and he says, see, a message from Hashem. A message from Hashem. Hashem is telling us that sometimes we think that, everything is good. Everything is good in our life. There's nothing for us to fix. But if we look a little harder, we'll find there's something we can improve. Right? We should always find something to improve, something that can be better. Now, today, this idea is universally accepted. But in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, this was a crazy idea. That the words that somebody says, not a rabbi, not a Torah scholar, not even a Jew, a guy comes and says something for his business. And the Baal Shem Tov says, this is a message from Hashem. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef turns to the Baal Shem Tov and he says, I'm sorry, I can't understand such a thing. Right? I can't accept such a thing. And the Baal Shem Tov says, you don't say you can't understand. Say you don't want to understand. If you would really try to understand it, you'd be able to. Right? But it goes against your whole worldview. So you don't want to accept it. He wasn't happy with his answer, and he walked away. And he goes to the other side of the shul. He's getting ready to leave. And as he's getting ready to leave, there's this wagon going outside of the shul. And the wagon gets stuck. This is the middle of the winter. There was this big rainstorm. And the wagon got stuck in the mud. So the wagon driver gets out of the wagon. And he comes into the shul. He opens up the door and he sees everybody sitting around the learning. And he says, I need some of you guys to come out and help me pull my wagon out of the mud. The students weren't very excited about this, right? The students of the Baal Shem Tov were not very excited about this job. It was very deep mud. It was cold outside. The wagon was very heavy. And he tells them, I'm sorry, we can't do it. We're not strong enough to pull the wagon out of the mud. We're not accustomed to this type of labor. So the Ukrainian wagon driver says to them in Ukrainian, he says, Mozhish, da ne chochesh. He says, don't say you can't. You could, you just don't want to. And Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, when he heard this, he realized Really? This is the message. And he went back to the Baal Shem Tov and became one of the greatest students of the Baal Shem Tov. And this is really the message. This is what this week's Parsha is telling us. Right? It tells us, Ki kare kan sipar. If you encounter a bird nest, but instead of writing encounter with a hey, writes encounter with an aleph, which means to call out. The Torah is telling us, whenever you encounter something in your life, right? Whenever you think it's a mikra, right? It's something that you're bumping into, something that you just encountered, that you just happened upon. You have to realize it's not something that you just happened upon. It's something that's calling out to you. There's a message. It's a message from Hashem. There's something that you need to do. There's someone who needs help. There's a mitzvah that you can do now. You can do a mitzvah with these birds, right? And this is true for every time that you have a yikare, a mikra, right? So of course mikra is spelled with a hey, but the Torah over here spells it with an aleph to tell you that every time that you have a mikra, you encounter something, that thing is calling out to you. It has a message for you. And you have to listen. You have to try to figure out what is the message. And how can you take that message, understand it properly, and know what to do with your life. And just to conclude with a story. In the city of Berdichev, Zelig the miser passed away. Zelig the miser passed away, and everybody in town was talking about it. Nobody really liked Zelig. He was one of the richest men in town, and he wasn't known as a very generous person. But he gave, people asked him, he gave some tzedakah, but he was for his status, for his the amount of money that he had, what he gave was nothing, right? Most of the other rich people built a yeshiva, built a big shul, had their names on some big building, and Zelig didn't have his name on any buildings, right? And so you can imagine the surprise of everybody in Berdichev when they heard that the rabbi of the town, Rabbi Yitzchak of Berdichev, is coming to the Levaya, is going to the funeral. And this was highly unusual. Berdichev would go to certain events. He would go to bris and weddings he would also go to, but he wouldn't go to funerals unless it was a very special person. And everybody in town decided if the Rebbe is going out to this funeral, they're also going to join. So everybody went to honor Zelig the miser. And after the funeral, they go to Rabbi Yitzchak and they say, Rebbe, what's going on? Why did you attend this funeral? Right? Zelig the miser. Why did he go to this funeral? And Rabbi Yitzchak says to them, listen, I run the court. I run the Beis Din in Berdichev. And Zelig, or Reb Zelig, came to me with 3 court cases in his life. 3 court cases. And I'll tell you those court cases, I'll tell you the 3 din Torahs that he brought before me, and then you can decide whether I should have gone, whether he was worthy of going to his funeral. So he says the first din Torah happened with Shalom. Reb Shalom was a merchant, and he would come to Berdichev once a year for the big fair. And one year, he comes to the marketplace, and he reaches into his pocket to pull out the bag of money that he had with him, and it's gone. He checks the other pocket, checks all of his pockets, looks around on the floor, and the money's gone. And this is not just the money that he himself had saved up for the past year, but this is money that he had borrowed from other people, right? And he looks around, he starts yelling, where's the money? Everybody starts helping him look, but the money's gone. And he's so distressed that he faints on the spot. He faints. Right? They water, they try to revive him, but he faints again. Right? The doctors, they try to help him, but it's nothing's working. At that moment, Zelig is walking by in the marketplace, and he hears what's going on, he finds out the story, and he runs over, and he says, Shalom, can you tell me how much money did you lose? And he said, I lost 300 rubles. And he says, well, you got to identify it. I found 300 rubles. You got to identify it. You got to tell me exactly what denominations there were. He tells him exactly what bills there were. He tells him exactly the bag, the type of bag that it was in. And he says, 1 minute, I have your money. And he runs off. He comes back like 10 minutes later with the money. He says, I'm sorry, I lost the bag, but I have all the bills. And he gives it to Shalom. Shalom, of course, is very happy. He got the money back. On the side is standing a person. Rabbi Yitzchak didn't identify the person by his name. And this person was the one who stole the money, right? And he's standing and he's watching. He's feeling a little guilty about what happened when he sees how, Shalom fainted. And then he watches how Zelig gives back the money that he stole. So he feels so embarrassed. He runs over to Reb Zelig and he says, here's the money. I want to give you the money back. Zelig says, absolutely not. You didn't take any money from me. And he says, yeah, but I stole the money that you returned. I want to give you the money back. He says, absolutely not. I got a mitzvah. I'm not going to sell the mitzvah. So he says, you have to take it back. He says, you want to argue? We can go to court. So they came to court. There was an undercover case. Nobody heard about it, of course. The thief didn't want anybody to know about it. And in the end, I ruled in Reb Zelig's favor. That was his first court case. The second court case involves Usher. Usher was a poor man. He lived in Berditchev, and he tried different jobs, but nothing really worked out. And one day he decided that maybe if you try his luck in traveling to a different city, he might have better luck than in Berditchev. So he goes to his wife and he tells his wife, I want to travel out of business. His wife says, are you crazy? We barely have any money to feed the kids now when you're home. If you leave, who knows, you're going to be away for months, you're going to leave me alone with the kids. And Usher says, no, I got to go, I got to do this. And he's trying to convince his wife. And finally he says to his wife, finally one day he comes to his wife and he says, I'm traveling to business I'm traveling to the distant town next week, and you don't have to worry about money. Why not? So he says, well, I made a deal with Reb Zelig, rich Reb Zelig. He agreed to support you while I'm gone. If you go to him every Thursday, he's going to give you money for Shabbos, everything you need. Okay, so Usher leaves town. His wife waits till Thursday. She goes to Reb Zelig's house and she asks for the money that she's owed. And Reb Zelig's secretary says, I don't know what you're talking about. She says, no, my husband made a deal with Reb Zelig. You have to give me money every Thursday. And she's arguing. They're arguing back. And Reb Zelig hears what's going on. He comes out. He hears the story. And he says, oh, yeah, I completely forgot about that. Of course, you got to give her every week 10 rubles. Okay. This goes on for 6 months. Usher comes back after 6 months. He hears that Zelig gave his wife money. Of course, he knew the whole thing wasn't true. And he runs to Reb Zelig to give him the money back, the money that he had given. And Reb Zelig says, I'm not taking your money. He says, well, you gave my wife money. I want to pay you back. He says, I'm sorry. I got a mitzvah. I'm not selling the mitzvah. Again, they came to court. And again, Reb Levi Yitzchak ruled Reb Zelig is correct in the case. He doesn't need to sell his mitzvah. The third case involves Chaim. Chaim was a fur merchant, and his business went south. And he needed a loan to get his business back in order. So he went to Reb Zelig and he asked him for a loan. And Reb Zelig said, you have any guarantor, somebody to guarantee you're going to pay me back? And he says, no, but I don't have anybody. He says, I can't lend you money without a guarantor. He said, Hashem will be my guarantor. Okay, fine, I'll give you the thing for 3 months. He gives him 100 rubles for 3 months. 3 months come and go, and Chaim doesn't have any money. A year later, finally, Chaim manages to put back the money. He put together the money, he comes back to Reb Zelig, and Reb Zelig says, I'm sorry, your guarantor already repaid. So what are you talking about? And he says, well, 3 months when the due date came, I turned to Hashem. I said, Hashem, you guaranteed this loan. And that day, miraculously, I got an extra 100 rubles. I don't know how. So Hashem repaid. I'm not taking your money. And again, they came to court. And again, I ruled in Reb Zelig's favor. And, after these 3 court cases, that's why I decided to go to this funeral. So this is a very well-known story, and I heard the story many times, but there's an obvious question over here, right? Reb Zelig was known as a miser, right? How did these 3 stories come about? And what was he a miser? Was he not a miser? So there are those who explain the story, and they say that really he wasn't a miser. He helped people, but he did everything in secret, and nobody knew about it. But another approach, another way to look at the story is that Reb Zelig really wasn't. He was a miser. He was a stingy person. He wasn't somebody who went around building big shuls and yeshivas. But when Reb Zelig saw somebody, he encountered somebody who needed help, he realized that if I see somebody who needs help, it's my job to help. Right? Even though he didn't go around looking for opportunities to give to tzedakah. Right? He didn't go around building yeshivas, building shuls, putting his name on buildings. But when he saw somebody in trouble, he realized that it's his job to help. And that's really the message over here. The word mikra, the word yikare, means to encounter, to come upon something, but it's spelled with a hey. But the Torah spells it with an aleph. It's telling us when you bump into something, When you see something unusual, you have to realize it's calling out to you. There's a message. You're needed. What can you learn from it, and what are you needed for? So we all need to realize that whatever situation we find ourselves in, whatever interesting things we encounter, first of all, is a message for us. And for somebody who needs our help, we have to realize that if we encounter them, it's our job to help them out. Chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim.